What's up, everybody? Philly Soccer Page post-game show. I'm Mike Servideo here with Kevin Kincaid. Union dropped their last game of the season, regular season, 2-0 to the New York Red Bulls.
Also, probably their last home game,
Also
but
possibly their last home game of the season.
You never know.
Reaction to this one?
Not much reaction to the game itself because it didn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Everybody knew that New England wasn't going to win 7-0, and everybody knew that the Union wasn't going to lose 7-0. I, said all week that it didn't make sense to play any of the starters at all. And Jim Curtin did kind of what we thought he would do, which is play the backline, play Andre Blake, your defensive midfielders, and then kind of experiment in the attack. And they carved out a couple chances here and there, but as far as the game, it didn't really matter. It was all about everything happening around it, which was a lot.
Let's talk about the end of the season. So the Union winless in 7 now.
7.
Backing into the playoffs.
14 losses.
I guess the definition of backing into the playoffs.
Yeah, it's more
What's all gone wrong in the last 2 months?
I mean, I don't even know where you'd start. I just, I think just trying to process the whole day. To me, we've covered how many Union teams have you and I covered? 6 now, 6 seasons or whatever, and. This is a team that hasn't been to the playoffs in 5 years. It's been. I did the math. It was like 1,800 days or something like that. Five years almost to the day, because it was October 15th, 2011 that they had a 1-1 draw with Toronto, and that's what clinched the playoffs for the first time ever. So talking about a franchise that gets in the playoffs for only the second time ever, and on fan appreciation night of all nights, they lose 2-0, get shut out again. You hear boos ringing out when there weren't a ton of them, because most of the fans had left, but. Jim Curtin picks up the microphone to talk to the fans who remained here. It's a thing they do every year where they address the crowd and say, hey, thanks or whatever, and they go around and do some giveaways and sign some things. But the fact that you hear boos and this team is so poor right now while they also break the longest postseason drought. And it just I can't wrap my head around the juxtaposition of how negative everything is versus what they accomplished, which was what we had been clamoring for the last half decade.
It kind of defines Philadelphia sports in a way.
It's the most. It's as Zeitlin says, like the most Union possible way to get into the playoffs. It's crazy.
Shutout in the last 2 home games. A little bit of trouble in front of goal for this stretch of 7. CJ Sapong doesn't start tonight. Probably. I don't want to read too much into that, but.
Well, he had the blow to the head. He made it sound like it wasn't that. As far as concussions go, I guess that one wasn't as bad as others, and he's had a bunch of them. But, the attack has just really floundered down the stretch. I don't want to be that guy, but it really, when they lost Vince Noguera, a lot changed, Because they didn't have that ball-moving guy in the midfield, and Tranquillo Barnetta, I think, got a little tired towards the end. I think Keegan Rosenberry got a little tired. They had done really well early in the season in short turnaround situations, putting the same 11 out there, and the sports science staff did a really, really good job of keeping them fresh. I think they got a little tired down the stretch. I think people started to figure them out. The lack of tactical flexibility, just running the 4-2-3-1 into the ground out there. At some point, I think Jim's biggest failure or lack of whatever this year was to when Vince left, not to experiment a little bit and try 4-4-2 or something like that, especially when Alejandro Bedoya came in, because he's a guy who could have maybe changed the shape up a little bit. And CJ just struggled down the stretch because he was isolated up top. Maybe the confidence had gone a little bit, but when they had opportunities in the summer to kind of experiment a little bit and try to get out of that funk, which they were already in at that time, they kind of wasted those opportunities. And then when they got down to the stretch here, everything kind of tightened up, and they didn't want to stray from that at all.
I asked Greg this on the podcast this week, and I'll ask you here. Does there have to be some sort of backup plan to the 4-2-3-1 next season? Does there have to be some sort of if it's a 4-4-2, if it's if it's something?
The backup plan is that they don't play 4-2-3-1, because it's. I understand why they did it. And I understand why they have done it, and that's number one. The roster is built that way. Because they couldn't sign a DP striker, but they had the opportunity to bring in guys like Alberg and Ilsinho and Barnetta and whatnot. So they played that shape to their strength. If your midfield's better than your strike force, play 5 midfielders and only play 1 striker. But this is Ernie's first year. The roster is what it is. If they go into next season with a DP striker, which I think is their biggest need, then it all changes. But you have to show a little bit more tactical flexibility, more flexibility with the subs and stuff like that. I think that was Jim's biggest issue this year.
Do you think he has a chance to learn from that going into next year? Do you think he will?
I think he has to, doesn't he? Because it's not – things are different now. Ernie Stewart, I don't know what say he had in hirings and firings at AZ, but there were a lot of coaching changes there, And I mean, there's been an argument back and forth. Jim Curtin, does he deserve to keep his job? Does he not deserve to keep his job? I mean, they finished below 500 this year. However you look at draws, which I think are 500 in themselves. But they got into the playoffs by virtue of a terrible playoff system. 12 out of 20 teams get it. It is what it is. Look, I mean, if the playoff system was not, what it was, we wouldn't be talking about this strange occurrence of getting into the playoffs while also having a 7-game winless streak. So that's what creates this situation, is the weird rules. And if it wasn't that way, then maybe things would be different for Jim. I think next year he's on the hot seat. I mean, depending, unless they make some kind of crazy run in the playoffs, which I don't think they will.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about the offense. Let's talk about the defense a little bit now. Again, it seemed like a couple of mix-ups gave New York their goals today. It looked like on the first one that maybe Tribbett stepped up when Fabinho stayed back. On the second one, it looked like Fabinho got beaten. What is going on back there?
Yeah, I'm laughing because that's a radio drop they use on 97.5. It's some guy that goes, "What is going on back there?" I really don't know. I mean, it's just. This was a backline that was punching above its weight for a large part of the season, and Josh Yaro was back there. Obviously, they're a little different with Ken and Richie back there because they're both the same kind of guy. Yeah. To me, it's not even about Ken Tribbett. It's about the fact that they both are the same person. I could see Ken Tribbett and Josh Yaro being a decent pairing, as Richie Marquez and Yaro is a good pairing, but putting the two bigger, ball winner, taller guys back there, it's not going to work as well. I don't know. I mean, it just, again, that was a play where Ken stepped and Fabi kept him on, onside. And they got beat on that same exact play in the game that they played against New York 2 weeks ago, where Bradley Wright Phillips just got right over the top. So, I don't know. The defensive coverage has just been different. Andre Blake, you can only pull off miraculous saves for one half of the season, and maybe not all the time. But it just, I think, going back to what I said a couple weeks ago, I just feel like this team was kind of punching above its weight and overachieving early in the season when a lot of other teams hadn't really figured themselves out yet, and then you saw the cream kind of rise to the top.
If Josh Yaro is healthy enough to play midweek, do you start him?
I mean, now that I think about it, I would say yes. And even though I was one of the ones who came out and said that you should shut him down for the rest of the season, I don't know. Shutting him down for the rest of the season wasn't necessarily as much about the concussions as it was about his age. Yeah. I mean, because what are you really playing for at this point? But if he's healthy, I mean, I'm not a doctor. I don't know how severe one head injury is from the other head injury, but if the medical staff says he's good to go, then I think that Richie Marquez and Josh Yaro gives you a better chance to win.
We have to talk a little bit about it. Keegan Rosenberry, tremendous achievement, played every minute of every game this season as a rookie. He and I were talking just a little bit in the locker room. I said, you're being too modest with it, because he's a humble dude and he'll sit up here and just say the right things. Say, it's a good opportunity. It's nice to be out there all the time. But that's a record that you can't break. I mean, you play every single minute of every single game for over 34 games. It's 3,100 something. But if they expand it to like 38 games, somebody could play more minutes than him. But you can't play more than 100% of the minutes. So he's set a record that you can't break. No, it's phenomenal. Could they have rested him a little bit and maybe he would have been a little stronger down the stretch? Yeah, sure. But I mean, I was one of the ones that said they shouldn't have drafted him where they did. So I was wrong about that one. As were many of us. We got to talk to Marisa Dew for a few minutes in the locker room just now, who fractured his tibia.
Fibula, yeah.
And is shut down for the rest of the season after not featuring once this season. I mean, how disappointing is that for Mo?
It's just, I mean, I can't even imagine, to go through everything he did and to be that close. He was supposed to. I mean, think about it. He was supposed to start today. So he after one whole year, after more than a year. After 13 months of rehab, he's 24 hours from getting to where he is, and then this injury it's on the same leg. He just said he got his spikes caught in the turf, and that's what did it. So I mean, it's not the stress fracture he had was on his tibia, so it's not the same bone. You have the two in the lower part of your leg. So I mean, you can't say that one led to the other. There's just no medical way, right? Okay,
I don't know.
Right, I don't think there would be.
We'll have to confirm with the doctors.
But it's just, and I mean, I feel for him, and I don't know. They signed him. They had him on loan in 2014. Last year, they signed him permanently, and then this was the second year of that deal. So I think it's next year is at least another year or an option. We just don't know what the terms of the contract were, but it just makes it. I mean, you have to make that crappy decision. your captain, a guy who's been loyal to you, played center back, played a bunch of different stuff to you, just say, hey, we can't do it anymore? I don't know, man. I'm glad I'm not the one.
Yeah, I am too.
Doing it, How about the playoff game?
So I'll do last question. Union travel.
Oh wait, they are going to the playoffs. Sure.
Union travel to Toronto for the playoffs.
Are you traveling to Toronto?
I'm not going to travel to Toronto unless someone else is picking up the bill.
It might just be me and my crappy old truck.
Can they get a result in Toronto?
Well, I mean, they got a 1-1 up there. Javinko didn't play, and now he's healthy. I don't know. I mean, look, the thing that I look at is that Toronto hasn't won. How about we look at it this way? Toronto hasn't won at BMO. They hadn't won at BMO until today. So the results there down the stretch were a little questionable. They don't have a ton of playoff experience. They've been in once. The Union doesn't have a ton of playoff experience either. I mean, if anything, the pressure's on them to perform now at home as a huge favorite. And so, I mean, it's not like there's any pressure on the Union to go up there. I mean, they should be relatively free of this winless streak and the malaise that's been on them because now the regular season's over.
Yeah,
so
it's almost a new season.
Yeah, and Andre was in there in the locker room just saying, look, I mean, you can look at it positive or negative. We have a big chance here. And he's right. The regular season's done. Yeah. So, there's certainly no pressure on them. And Toronto, is they're the ones in front of thousands of fans in a brand new stadium who are going to be under pressure to perform when the Union, nobody's really expected anything of them. And we've seen that, those kinds of Union teams do well in the past. So
yeah,
go figure, man.
Yep. Yeah. So we'll find out when that game is. I guess it'll be either Wednesday or Thursday. We'll get that information for you. I want to give a couple of shout-outs because it might be our last recording of the season. I made a list here just so I didn't forget anybody. First off, I got to congratulate Ed Farnsworth. Got married on Friday. Congratulations, Ed and Carla. You guys are awesome. Thanks for keeping us in line this year, Ed. Thank you out to Daniel, who makes this look semi-professional every week. I'm sorry that I'm rooting it for all of us. Mm-hmm. Thanks out to everybody that covers the Union for Philly Soccer Page, particularly Adam, Peter, Chris and Jeremy with all 3 points, Dan Walsh, our photographers, Earl Gardner, Paul Rodero. Everybody that does a post game with me, thank you, Kevin, for doing this a bunch of times.
Pleasure.
Thanks to Greg. Thanks out to Matt, to George. Thanks to everyone at the Philadelphia Union for giving us their time. Thanks to Jim Curtin, Matt Botterford, Chris Winkler. You guys are awesome.
And thanks for reading all of our stuff and watching.
Thank you to everybody out there that reads Philly Soccer Page, comments on Philly Soccer Page, calls us idiots on Twitter, whatever. We appreciate it all. And hopefully we'll see you in 2017.